Hello and welcome to the Real World Podcast. My name is Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support here at the Real World YouTube channel. Be sure to give us a like, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications of all our videos here at the Real World. If you're a movie fan or if you know of someone else who is a movie fan, they'll get a lot out of the channel here. So go ahead and click that subscribe button and be sure to share this on social media. All of our social medias are in the description below. Today is episode 20 of the Real World Podcast. We are talking all about the new Pinocchio movie from Disney and Robert Zemekis. We're also going to talk about all the news out of D23 this week and discuss our top 5 favorite Robert Zemekis films. Joining me on this episode is Bert. Hey, man, how you doing?
How's it going, Cam? Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Thanks for joining us. And let's just jump right in. All right, before we jump into our review of the new Pinocchio movie, we wanted to cover some movie news. And all the movie news, all the big movie news this week was coming out of the D23 Expo. This is Disney's big fan convention, sort of like, Comic-Con or Star Wars Celebration. It's kind of like that, but all things Disney. And now Disney, of course, is not just Disney, but it's Pixar, it's Marvel, it's Lucasfilm. It's all these huge things that movie fans are crazy about. So we wanted to cover all the big news. We're not going to spend a ton of time on all these things, but there were some trailers that dropped we wanted to discuss, and just some new information about some of these movies and series that are coming from Disney. So first thing, I wanted to talk about the live action Disney movies that are coming. The one that's right around the corner is Disenchanted. So this is a sequel to Enchanted. Came out way back in 2007. So this is a long time coming. Fans have been wanting a sequel. I'm one of them. I am actually a huge fan of Enchanted. I think it is a really clever and fun take on a kind of Disney princess thing, right? So it's a Disney princess who is animated in the beginning of the movie. Then she comes to the real world, and it's got a lot of laughs. Amy Adams is great in it. I'm a huge fan of the whole cast. And so the sequel is coming November 24th of this year. And they did debut the trailer. I was excited by this, just seeing all these characters back. I think the story looks interesting and it looks very different from what I was expecting from a sequel to this movie. Bert, you got a chance to watch this one?
I did, yeah.
Okay, what'd you think?
Looks good. I also like the original Enchanted. And when I didn't see a picture of it, I saw the name Disenchanted. And I thought, I wonder if it's something to do with Enchanted.
Right.
And then of course it is.
Right.
But I'm kind of surprised that they are just now dropping the trailer. I mean, we're only a couple months out.
Yeah.
And this is something that's different with streaming. Like it must not be worth it to them to give you 6 months to a year's notice for certain films.
Right.
It must be proven that it doesn't really make much of a difference, I guess.
Sure. In the streaming world, I guess it's kind of changed things where it's like, people just see, oh, there's a new movie on, let's watch it, because they'll put it right up there on Disney Plus when you log in. They know you're logging in almost every day, so they know that you're going to see it and probably check it out.
Right. Yeah. And but I do think it looks really good. James Marsden it's funny. It's funny to see him in that kind of role. The first time I ever saw him, of course, was back in X-Men, and so every time I see him in something different, it's hard to believe it's the same guy. But yeah, Amy Adams is great. I just rewatched Justice League, and she's just I like almost everything she's in. She's such a good actor.
I agree.
And I was gonna say though, in my top fantasy films, I did think about Enchanted. I wouldn't put it in my top 5, and I didn't put it in my top 10, but it's probably not too far behind that. It is a good one. I will say, I mean, obviously I like Ever After better.
Sure.
And then another one that's one that doesn't get talked about a lot is Ella Enchanted. Have you ever seen
Ella
Enchanted?
I like that one with Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too. So this looks like it should be good. I'll definitely be tuning in.
Yeah, me too. I like where they're taking the story. It's years later, and it seems like Giselle kind of becomes the villain. Like she's the evil stepmother, like locking her stepdaughter away. Maybe Maya Rudolph, I know, is in it. She seems like maybe she's working behind the scenes, corrupting her. Maybe I'm getting a little bit of like Anakin Skywalker being corrupted by the Emperor vibe from it.
Sure.
Hopefully there's a redemption arc at the end, but we'll have to wait and see.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So yeah, that one's exciting. The
Yeah, that
first
looks good.
teaser for The Little Mermaid was released. Disney's going back and they've been remaking all of their animated classics over the past, couple decades now. They've been doing this. And look, I mean, it's a teaser. It's
Yeah.
not much. It's like her swimming around and singing the song briefly. So there's not much to go on, but it does look good. I mean, the visual effects look really good, look really
Hmm.
solid. Halle Bailey is playing Ariel in this, and I haven't seen her in anything. She's got a great voice.
Hmm.
She looks good in the role. Not much to
Yeah.
go on here, but
Yeah.
that one's coming out next year. Any thoughts on that teaser?
Yeah, a few thoughts. I'm not real big on animation in general, and I
Sure.
know you're a fan of hand-drawn animation, and
Yeah.
I really haven't been. It
Sure.
just doesn't really grab my attention a whole lot. I get
Okay.
that it's art, though. I mean,
Sure.
it's probably as much, if not more art than
Right.
the digital method, right? So I'm
Sure.
not trying
Sure.
to knock it. It's just not my preferred method of viewing films.
Right.
And so I've probably seen a Little Mermaid, but it's like that and Lion King. Like I'm the one that's gonna probably always prefer the newer version if it's done
Sure.
well.
Right.
As
Right.
you know, I do like the live action Lion King better than
Yes.
the
Yeah. We
hand
talked
drawn.
about that. Yeah.
Right, we had a good long discussion about that.
Right.
So I think, I mean, it's definitely one that I'll want my kids to watch.
Sure.
So I'm sure I'll be tuning in for that one as well.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, me too. I'll check it out. I'm always curious, to see what they
Hmm.
do with these
Yeah, you're
live action
skeptical though,
remakes.
right?
I'm always skeptical. Yeah, I'm such a
Yeah,
huge fan of all those classics. I grew up in
yeah,
that
yeah,
Disney Renaissance area, which is like Little Mermaid all the way through Tarzan, so
sure.
those are some of my favorites. And I don't
Yeah,
think they've quite done most of them justice, really. But we'll just have to wait and see.
yeah. Maybe this is the one.
Maybe. We'll see. Moving on, another movie coming out next year, straight to Disney Plus, is going to be Peter Pan and Wendy. So, another live action remake, this time of Peter Pan. As the title suggests, this one will focus more on Wendy and her story with Peter and her brothers going to Neverland and meeting Captain Hook. They've cast Captain Hook. It is Jude Law who will be playing Captain Hook in this film. And it's directed by David Lowery, who's a director I actually just spoke about on our last podcast. He directed The Green Knight, which is one of my favorite fantasy films. He also did, before that, another Disney remake of Pete's Dragon, which I actually consider the best of all the Disney remakes. And
Mm,
we'll
really?
talk more about it when we talk about this new Pinocchio movie. But I think what they did with the Pete's Dragon remake was just so different that
Mm,
I really enjoyed it. And I'm a big fan of the original. But I think they found such a unique way into that story that I think it really worked. So this one I'm pretty excited about. Peter Pan is a classic story that I really like. The original Disney film is still my favorite. I actually really liked the 2003 live action version. Peter Pan, it's one of those public domain characters, so anyone can make a movie about him.
is that right? I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, yeah. So they made one 2003. I want to say Fox did it, maybe.
Mm.
I forget who directed it, but it was really solid. Jason Isaacs played Captain Hook and
Oh,
did a very good
that's
job.
good.
So yeah, yeah. I'm curious, to see how different this version will be and kind of how it looks. They put out a poster, which is like the ship going through the clouds. Curious to see
Hmm.
what that one's going to be all about. So that one's another 2023 film. Other ones they announced, again, no trailers for these. Snow White getting a remake as well.
Okay.
Rachel Zegler, who played the lead in West Side Story, the one that Steven Spielberg just made, she's playing Snow
Right.
White.
Okay.
And Gal Gadot is going to play the Evil Queen.
Really?
So it'll be
Okay.
a villain role. Yeah, for our Wonder Woman, she's going to be
Good.
playing a
Yeah.
villain, which will be really interesting to see. So that one's
Hmm.
not until 2024. So they've announced that The Lion King is actually going to get a prequel slash sequel. It's going to follow the events of the first Lion King live action remake that we got in 2019,
Hmm.
but it's also going to cover Mufasa's backstory. So the title is Mufasa, the Lion King. And Barry Jenkins is directing it. He's an Academy Award winning director. He is helming this new movie, which is also set for, I believe, summer of 2024.
Yeah. Is this another live action, but with like just like the recent one?
That's correct. Yeah, just like John
Okay.
Favreau's Lion King, this will be a fully digital but
Hmm.
live action looking
Yeah.
Lion
Yeah.
King
Yeah.
movie.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'll probably tune in for that as well.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
curious.
as you know, I like that. I just like the look of those kind of movies. Again, when they're done well, which I can't say is often, but I
Right.
mean, it's so photorealistic,
Yeah,
almost,
it's
with that
incredible.
recent Lion King. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious about that one because it is going to be a totally fresh story. We don't know anything about Mufasa's
sure,
backstory. That's never
sure.
been explored. So that one
Yeah,
I actually am anticipating quite a bit.
yeah. Okay.
Last for the live action films that they have is a remake of Haunted Mansion. So Eddie Murphy made a Haunted Mansion movie, I don't
Yeah, I
know,
never
10,
saw that.
15 years ago.
Did you see
You,
it?
you know, it's actually pretty funny. It's not his best, but if you
Yeah.
want kind of a fun family comedy with some kind
Hmm.
of horror elements, it's kind of like
Yeah,
fun,
yeah.
scary. It's not really
Hmm.
scary, but it's kind of more Scooby-Doo, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
That was a fun one. So I'm curious to see how this is going to be different. Yeah, that's another one we'll just kind of have to wait for the first footage. They haven't even dropped any footage yet. Moving on to Disney animation. So Disney is releasing a movie called Strange World. This one had a trailer released a few months back. That's coming out November 2023. Jake Gyllenhaal, Lucy Liu are both going to provide their voices for this one. It looks very Jules Verne inspired, kind of sci-fi fantasy adventure movie.
Hmm.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Journey to the Center of the Earth, that kind of vibe. Yeah, so Strange World comes out very soon. So the cast was there to talk that one up a little bit. But new ones that we haven't heard about yet that were announced this weekend. One is called Wish. This one is an origin story for the magical wishing star that
Hmm.
we hear about in all these kind of fairy tales. So this is a
Yeah.
totally original story. They didn't release any footage. They're still early days working on it.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about that one. That
I mean, the
seems like
song
an
in
interesting one.
Pinocchio is "When You Wish Upon a Star." So I
Exactly.
mean,
So I don't know
yeah,
if it's going to tie in,
spin
but
off of Pinocchio.
it's kind of, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So
Prequel.
right. So that'll be fun. As far as Disney animation, the only other thing they announced was a series that is coming to Disney Plus called Iwaju. It looks a lot like an animated series about Wakanda,
Mm.
the nation and Black Panther from the
Hmm.
MCU, but
Hmm.
it's actually its own thing. But it is a futuristic city in
Oh,
Africa, basically, is what this
okay.
is, and it's about these two kids that go on this adventure in this city. Yeah, yeah, it looks interesting. So we'll have to wait for that one, also coming next year. Then Pixar took the stage at D23, and they announced all their new movies that are being released. One of them is called Elemental, and this is a movie about a man made of fire and a woman made of water who fall in love. Or actually, it's the other way around. It's a water man and a fire girl.
Oh,
They
that
fall in
changes it.
love.
That's
Right,
different.
exactly. Yeah. June 16th, 2023. This one will be in theaters. So it's coming up next summer. They didn't release any footage, but all the
Yeah.
imagery looks really interesting, as Pixar always does, very imaginative
Hmm.
new world they've created of all these people that are based on these elements. And
That sounds like that
so,
could be good.
yeah, I'm really curious about it. I don't know who the voice talent is behind it, but we'll
Hmm.
we'll have to keep our eyes out. All right, so the next one Pixar talked about was a movie called Elio. This is a movie about a young boy who's sent into outer space accidentally and begins interacting with these aliens who mistake him as the ambassador for the planet Earth. And so I just like when Pixar comes up with these brand new ideas like this. They're such a clever studio to do this constantly. It seems like they're coming up with
Yeah.
these new ideas. So I know you and I are both big sci-fi guys, so this is probably one we'll check out.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, so that'll be spring 2024. The first ever series from Pixar. They've never done a series, they've only done movies up until this point,
Right.
but they're doing a series now for Disney Plus called Win or Lose. And this is going to follow a Little League softball team as they're kind of working their way through the season to their championship game. Each episode will be the perspective of a different team member. So the pitcher, I
Hmm.
guess he'll get his episode, and then you'll get the first
Huh.
baseman and his perspective on it. So you'll kind of get each character's perspective on the same kind of scenarios.
Yeah.
It's being led by Will Forte from SNL. He's playing Coach Dan, and
Okay.
this series is coming in 2023. So
Once
it'll
again, a
be
very creative kind of concept,
yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. So that should be interesting. The last thing from Pixar was a sequel, which is Inside Out 2. So
Oh.
Inside Out, which came out back in 2015, is getting a sequel. It again will follow the young girl Riley as she's now in her teenage years, dealing with new emotions. So
Hmm.
there are going to be new characters in there. Amy Poehler will return as Joy. So she's still leading the cast. We're not sure who else is coming back and what new characters are going to be introduced, but that was announced this weekend. That will be out again, summer 2024.
I remember liking Inside Out. It's
Yeah,
decent.
it's a fun one. It's another,
Mhm.
different idea,
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
like. It's not at the top of my favorite Pixar movies list, but
Hmm.
it is one that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Next up, Marvel took the stage. Marvel, of course, everyone went crazy. Everyone's huge into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the most popular franchise of all time. And they kick things off with Werewolf by Night. So this is a special presentation.
What does that
Uh,
mean?
that means it's basically like a one-off Disney Plus special. It's not going
Hmm.
to be in theaters, not a full-length film, but it's not a
Oh, it's not a
series.
full length. Okay.
No, no, it's just like I think it's going to be like an hour or 45 minutes, something like that.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so it's kind of like a TV special in a way, but
Huh.
it's
Okay.
just for streaming. So it'll be exclusively on Disney Plus, and it is directed by Michael Giacchino, who
Oh.
is
Mhm.
a prolific composer. We talked about on our recent Scores podcast, one of my favorites. And so yeah, he's been wanting to direct something for
So
a long
he's
time.
never, yeah, he's never directed before,
He
right? Yeah.
never has. He
Yeah.
never has. So
Wow.
this will be his first outing as a director. And he came out on stage to introduce, the new logo. And they, of course, showed that teaser trailer. And he said it's kind of that fun, scary vibe. They don't want to go too
Hmm.
heavy into horror because we know, young kids still like Marvel. But, it's kind of inspired by Poltergeist. That was a film that he cited. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was one that he said was one of his favorites growing up. So it's sort of inspired by that. It kind of has that look and feel about it. I think it looks cool. I mean, it's all black and white, which I think was a really cool move to go with that kind of classic look, sort of a old Universal monster movie vibe to it. It does look kind of silly. It's not super hardcore horror, but I like that. I think that's a smart way to go with this character. I don't know much about this character in the comics. I'm
Hmm.
guessing he's just your typical werewolf. It looks like there's all these like bounty hunters or something going after
Hmm.
this thing, and they don't know what it is, and sort of mysterious. But it had a really cool look and vibe to the trailer. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I'm very interested in this.
Yeah,
I'm kind of sad that it might only be 45 minutes long.
I know.
It was
Yeah.
a really creative trailer. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like what they were doing with the film, just the tricks that they were putting in there. And then the content also looks engaging. So when does this one come out again?
This one is October 7th, so it's
Yeah,
coming out
yeah.
just in a couple
Like
weeks, actually.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I really want to see this. I mean, that trailer really got me interested in it.
Yeah, yeah, same for me. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Then they released the teaser trailer for Secret Invasion. So, Secret Invasion is a new series coming to Disney Plus next year. It stars Samuel L. Jackson. He's back as Nick Fury. We haven't seen him in a while. Ben Mendelsohn is coming back. He played a character named Talos in Captain Marvel, is where he was introduced.
Wow.
Emilia Clarke is now joining the MCU. She's in this series. Olivia Colman as well. So this trailer, it really set the stage for the show that we haven't known a whole lot about. We knew it was about the Skrulls. That's what the comic book storyline is. I've actually read the comic Secret Invasion that this is based on. So it looks like it's very much its own adaptation of it. It's going to be different, but still stick to the basic idea of these Skrulls are kind of invading Earth. They can
Okay.
disguise themselves as anyone, so we don't know who they are. And so, yeah, I'm really intrigued by this. It looks like a kind of like almost like a spy series, is the vibe
Hmm.
kind of I'm getting from this. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I couldn't really get a handle on what exactly the movie was going to be. I
Right,
forgot it was even about the scrolls, but now that you
right,
mention that, yeah, I get
yeah,
that. Yeah, and with Samuel Jackson and especially Amelia Clark,
right.
yeah, take my money.
Cool, cool.
Sign
Yeah,
me
yeah.
up.
Right. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be either 6 or 8 episodes. I'm not exactly
Oh, okay.
sure.
Okay.
But yeah, it's one of their series that they're doing again coming next year. So that should be fun. Also coming next year, a movie, a sequel to Captain Marvel. It's called The Marvels. For anyone who's seen Miss Marvel, it was kind of set up at the end of Miss Marvel. that she was going to cross over with Carol Danvers in
Oh.
that whole thing. So it is Kamala Khan, who is Miss Marvel on her series. She's going to be in this movie. Brie Larson's back as Carol Danvers. Monica Rambeau is going to be a character in this as well, who we met in WandaVision. The kind of premise is all three of these characters kind of have similar powers. And what happens is when they use their powers, they're switching places. So Carol Danvers is out in outer space. Kamala Khan is down here in New Jersey, and they switch places because they use their powers. And so they kind of have to figure out why this is happening, how to fix this problem. And it's going to be a kind of cosmic adventure with all of these characters together. No footage was released. I think they might have shown some at the event, but none of it was released online. So curious to see what ends up happening with those characters.
Samuel Jackson's not in this one.
They haven't announced it. No, I don't
Yeah,
think he
yeah,
will be. I think he'll be
right.
dealing with his
His own
Skrull
thing.
invasion
Yeah,
while they're
yeah.
doing this.
I like Captain Marvel. Okay, it's not one of my favorite ones
Yeah,
of Marvel, but a lot of people don't like it.
yeah,
I think it was pretty good. You know, it was.
yeah,
I felt like it was kind of like Black Widow. Like it was kind of like what I expected, and it was a good film. I mean, better than a
right.
lot of action movies that are out there. That's for sure.
Sure.
You know.
That's true. Yeah, that's the thing about Marvel is they don't really make a bad movie that I've
Right.
seen so
Yeah. It's
far.
at least 2.5 stars, if not, a star higher,
Yeah, I think I gave it three
So,
stars. It was
yeah,
right there.
yeah,
It was like a solid movie that I
yeah.
enjoyed watching. Not one that I like to revisit very often, but one that I like.
Right. Yep.
Another series that was announced was Armor Wars. This is going to star Don Cheadle back as War Machine, and it's going to follow what happens if Tony Stark's technology falls into the wrong hands. So
Mm.
War Machine, I guess, has to go recover this Stark technology that these villains have acquired and are using for nefarious purposes. So
Ah,
that one won't start shooting until next year. So it'll come out in 2024. That again, I think is a 6 episode series. So I like
okay.
Don Cheadle a lot as this character. I think he's done a great job playing him. It's kind of cool that we're going to get to focus on him a little bit more. He kind of
Yeah.
gets pushed to the side, I think, a lot, and so we're kind
Yeah.
of get to delve deeper into his character a little bit more, which we've been waiting for a
Okay.
long time. And he's back in Iron Man 2, so he's
Yeah.
been around for a while now.
Right.
Next up was Captain America New World Order. This is the fourth Captain America movie,
What?
which is starring Anthony Mackie as Captain
Ah,
America. So Falcon
okay.
and the Winter Soldier was the series we got with him, and Sebastian Stan as Bucky.
Hmm.
And at the end of that series, he takes on the mantle of Captain America.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say, I mean, the way they wrapped up Chris
Chris Evans, yeah,
Evans, yeah, I mean,
right.
it would be strange for him to, unless it was going backwards in time, it'd be strange for him to step back into the role.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they could
Yeah.
do a World War II story with him. And I guess
Yeah, that'd
that's
be
a
awesome.
possibility that there could be
You
flashbacks
should
here,
mention
but
that to them. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of doubt it. I feel like Endgame, that last scene with
Yeah,
him, I
yeah.
think that's going to
That
be
was
all we
about
get.
perfect. That was
It
about
was.
perfect.
You can't really get any better than that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Anthony Mackie's taking over the role.
Okay.
Have a new director, but they did announce some cast members. The main one being Tim Blake Nelson is returning to the MCU after his small role in The Incredible Hulk as Dr. Samuel
Oh.
Stearns. He's returning now as his comic book alter ego, the Leader.
Oh, okay.
So that character at the end of that movie gets some of the Hulk's blood dripped into his brain. He gets a little
Really?
cut. You start to see his head like start to turn green a little bit, and then we cut away. And we don't see him. We haven't
Okay.
seen him since 2008. We're like, oh, I
Huh.
guess we'll never figure out what
Yeah.
happened with him. But now, finally, we're getting
Huh.
actually his character, who's this big, instead of, Hulk gets super strong, his
Hmm.
brain, he gets super intelligent.
But does his head get, you're
His
making
head
me
gets
think his
huge.
head,
Yeah,
it does?
he looks like
So is it
Megamind.
like, it's like
Right.
Megamind. That's what I was
Right.
gonna say.
Exactly.
Nice. Our
Yeah.
cone heads or something. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I'm
Okay.
really curious to see how he's going to end up looking in this
Yeah.
movie. He's going to be
Right.
the main villain, and
Okay.
yeah, I've been waiting for this for a long time. I'm a big Hulk fan. I like that movie a lot, Incredible Hulk. I think it's very underrated, and I think he did a good job in that role. So I'm curious to see him play a super intelligent
Hmm.
villain. I mean, this villain in the comics, he can take on anybody because he's just so
Yeah.
smart. He outsmarts them. He figures out how to build some technology to defeat them, or
Oh,
whatever. So yeah,
hmm.
very, very excited about the new Captain America movie. Not just for Anthony Mackie, I think he's a great actor too, like how he's played his character in the MCU, but
Yeah.
also Tim Blake Nelson coming back. All right, and next up for Marvel Studios was the announcement of the cast of Thunderbolts. So Thunderbolts was announced at Comic-Con a couple months back. This is coming out July 26, 2024. This movie will close out the fifth phase of the MCU, and it's basically Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad. So it's sort of
Oh,
this group of anti-heroes that
okay.
band together and
Gotcha.
take on bad guys, I guess you could say.
Any
Um,
cast yet on that?
yeah, we got the full lineup. So
Okay.
Florence Pugh will return as Yelena Belova,
Well, who's
sister
that?
to
Why do I know her?
Black Widow. She was in the
Oh
Black Widow
yeah.
film.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yep, yep. So she's gonna lead the team, which will also include Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier. David
Good.
Harbour is coming back as Red Guardian, also from
Oh.
Black Widow. We'll get Wyatt Russell, who was in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. He ended up being U.S. Agent, is his character's name, John Walker. He tried to kind of take on the Captain America mantle. And at the end of that series, we see that Julia Louis Dreyfus comes and recruits him. She's going to appear in this as
Oh
well.
yeah.
She's playing a character named Valentina. She's kind of the puppet master behind the scenes of the whole thing, kind of the darker version
Yeah.
of Nick Fury.
So this
Um,
is that sort of what was like a post credits tease we had for one
right,
of the
right.
films, right?
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
been teased with this for a while. Black Widow
Hmm.
had that. Falcon and Winter Soldier, she
Yeah.
showed up. So yeah, she's kind of been building this team. The other two members will be Hannah John Kraman from Ant-Man and the Wasp. She played Ghost.
Mm.
So she was the
Okay.
villain in that movie. She's going to come back in this one as well.
Hmm.
And also from Black Widow, Olga Kurlenko, who played Taskmaster. So that character
Yeah.
will also
Yeah.
return
Was
in
that the
this.
silent character?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So
Right.
that's quite a lineup. I like the team. Very kind of. That's the thing about the Thunderbolts, like the Suicide Squad. They're all kind of loners. They kind of don't
Hmm.
like working together. They kind of fight themselves more than they fight the bad guy. So I'm curious to see what that dynamic is going to be like. How she's going to recruit some of these characters, like
Uh-huh.
Winter Soldier. I don't really see why he would team up with them,
Right.
but we'll just have to wait and see.
I'm sure that'll be good. A good one.
Yeah, yeah, I'm curious about it. Closing out Marvel, they of course, showed new footage for Wakanda Forever that was not
Mm.
released online, but we did get confirmation that Matt Shackman, who directed several episodes of WandaVision, is the director of Fantastic Four. So the
Oh yeah.
Fantastic Four
The
movie
new
now
reboot.
has the director again, and that will release November 8th, 2024, kicking off phase 6 of the MCU. All right, well, that was it for Marvel. Now we're going to jump into Lucasfilm. Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm, came out on stage to announce and debut some new footage and trailers and make some announcements there. They kick things off with Andor. This is the series that's dropping at the end of the month. So we're only a couple weeks away, September 21st. We will get the 3 episode premiere of Andor. This is a prequel to Rogue One. So Rogue One came out back in 2016. It followed the Rebels, who stole the plans to the Death Star. This show is going to follow Cassian Andor, show us how he became a rebel spy, who he was when he was growing up. He says in that movie that he's been in the fight since he was 6 years old. So I'm guessing we'll see a 6-year-old Cassian and watch him kind of grow up. Most of it, I think, is set, they said, about 10 years before Rogue One. And then they're getting a second season. Both seasons will be 12 episodes. The second season will take place only about a year before Rogue One. So we'll
Mm.
get his life leading directly into the events of that film. Diego Luna came out on stage with the rest of the cast and showed some new footage. They actually dropped on Disney Plus a new special look, which is almost an hour long, kind
Oh.
of behind the scenes look at them making this series. They showed an extended clip with Diego Luna and Stellan Skarsgård, who's playing a major role in this show.
Stellan.
And so, yeah, I know. I'm excited. He's a
He's
great
always
actor.
good.
Yeah, so I'm.
His voice is unlike anyone else's.
It is such
Do
a
you notice?
unique and specific
Yeah.
accent, and yeah,
And his sons are very, very talented.
they are. Yeah, they really are.
As a side
They're
note.
they're excellent. Yeah, very
Yeah.
talented family of actors there. So, Yeah, again, Andor, September 21st. Have you looked at any of this footage? Are you a fan of Rogue One? I don't think we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah, so I watched the trailer for Andor. Rogue One was okay. I'm probably at 2 stars on Rogue One. Like I didn't hate it,
Yeah,
but it's not really, there are some Star Wars films that I like.
sure.
But a lot of them I don't like that
Right,
much. Or
right.
there's parts of them I like, and then I get kind of
Yeah,
bored with like the congressional hearings kind of
sure.
stuff that goes on.
Right.
But anyway, so Rogue One was okay.
Yeah.
It's possible I would end up seeing this. I really want to watch Obi-Wan. I haven't even seen that one yet,
Okay.
so that there's just so many ahead of it, I think.
Yeah.
But it did look interesting. And I
Yeah.
will say I watched your video on the channel
Okay.
about what to watch before Andor, and the
Yeah.
timeline was very helpful. And I'm sure that kind of stuff
Okay.
is out there, but
Sure.
I didn't really know how kind of all that stuff fell in order. So that
Right.
was helpful to
Oh,
see that
good. Good.
this
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you watched that. Yeah. If anyone wants more info on Andor and kind of what to watch before Andor, where it falls in the timeline, you can watch that video on the channel right now. It looks like a spy series. Tony Gilroy, who worked on the Bourne movies, he was a writer, I think, on several of them, then directed the fourth
Hmm.
one. He's a director on the show. I think he directed most of the
Oh, okay.
episodes. So it has that kind of grittier style to it, which I think is
Yeah.
going to be pretty cool. Coming next month in October, October 26th, another animated series called Tales of the Jedi. This is going to be a 6 episode series which will follow 2 characters. So we're going to follow Ahsoka Tano, who is the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. We met her during the Clone Wars TV series, and now she's crossed over
Hmm.
into the live action series with Mandalorian. Rosario Dawson is playing her in those
Oh.
shows. And she's actually getting her own live action show, which they're shooting right now.
Hmm.
So this is going to kind of be her origin story. So there'll be 3 episodes dedicated to her, how the Jedi found her, how she became a Jedi, first was,
Hmm.
introduced to the Jedi Order, that whole thing. Then the other 3 episodes will focus on Count Dooku. So we're gonna get
Oh.
very young Dooku. We're also getting a young Qui-Gon, who we got a brief glimpse of in the
Oh.
trailer. It's not Liam Neeson though; it's gonna be his son
Right.
playing his
Are you
character.
serious?
Yeah, yeah,
Now
they got his
that's
son.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah, that's pretty neat that they cast him as a young Qui-Gon.
Huh.
So we're gonna get their whole relationship. I've read a couple of books that kind of give me some insight as to where they might go with it. One is called
Hmm.
Dooku Jedi Lost, which kind of follows his whole kind of falling away from the Jedi. This looks like it's going to be even earlier in his career as a Jedi. So very curious to watch the series. Dave Filoni directed it. He did all the animated series. He's behind the new Mandalorian show and all that. So very excited about that one. Another animated series getting a second season is The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch follows this group of kind of renegade clones after Order 66. So they did not obey Order 66. They decided to go their own way and kind of help people, and kind of they have to go into hiding because everyone with the Empire is chasing after all the clones to either decommission them or make them serve the Empire. So they're kind of off doing their own thing. They're getting a second season. It's a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with that first season. I think it was about 12 or 13 episodes, and the second season will be much of the same. So that will drop January 4th, 2023. We also got our first teaser for The Mandalorian season 3. This show will drop also next year and looks to be the biggest season yet. It looks like they're really going to build to this big war between all these Mandalorians. If you followed the show, you know that Mandalorian is now going back to his home planet of Mandalore, and there's this kind of battle for the throne of Mandalore now that's going to take place. Is kind of
Okay.
where we left off with him. And so, yeah, looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of action, a lot more Mandalorians. He's kind of been really the only Mandalorian throughout the show. There kind of been hints of other ones. We got a few more in season 2, but now he's going back to his home planet, and we're going to get this big war
Hmm.
between all the Mandalorians, which looks like a lot of fun. So,
It's another show I really want to see, especially I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff I was telling you about,
oh
with the
yeah,
way they do the digital
yeah,
projection behind them and
right,
stuff like that. But
yeah,
so many people say I've never had anybody say anything bad about them. Everybody says it's a great show. So I
yeah.
need to somehow fit that in at some point.
Yeah, it is, and it's only 8 episodes a season, so you
Oh,
could probably
okay.
get through it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent. I mean, the technology the filmmaking, storytelling, the acting, all of it's there. It's
Hmm.
really, really well done. A couple more pieces of Star Wars news. Ahsoka, as I mentioned before, getting her own series dropping next year. They did reveal a few more images from that. They did cast Ezra Bridger, who Rebels fans will know from the animated series. He's the main character of that animated series, where Ahsoka does show up. So the whole kind of show is going to be about her finding him. He was lost at the end of the last season. And so she's teaming up with a character named Sabine. We got her casting announcement at Star Wars Celebration earlier this year. And now they did cast Ezra. So all these characters that fans have known for years are now being adapted into the live action universe. And we're getting their stories continued. So they're a little bit older, and it'll be really fun to see. So I'm excited about that one.
Gotcha.
The final Star Wars announcement was Skeleton Crew. So this show was actually announced at Celebration, but they did reveal that they finished shooting. Jude Law is going to lead this series, and he is kind of leading this group of lost children throughout the galaxy.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a more, they described it as more of Goonies style Star Wars. So it's this group of kids
Okay.
kind of just up to no good throughout the galaxy.
Jude Law's
So
the captain or something?
I'm guessing he's a captain of the ship
Yeah.
of this band of misfits. I don't know. They
Hmm.
didn't reveal a ton
Okay.
about it. A couple images were released.
Gotcha.
It looks like it's high quality stuff. John Watts, who did the recent Spider-Man movies, is behind it. He
Mm.
created the show, helped write the show, and produce the show. So that also is coming later in 2023. A couple more things from Lucasfilm. They released a new trailer for Willow. So, Willow is the series based on the 1988 film by Ron Howard. Lawrence Kasdan's son, John Kasdan, who helped him write the Solo movie, Han Solo, is writing this series.
Mm.
And they've got, of course, Kathleen Kennedy back producing. So, Warwick Davis is back in the lead role, and it kind of follows a new group of kids who have to find him, go on this new adventure with him in this world that George Lucas created all these years ago. So this one comes out November 30th, 2022. I was enthralled by the trailer. I thought it was really good. This series is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. Just the scale of it looks pretty large. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I thought it looks really good. And
Yeah,
of course, last week you briefly talked about Willow. Actually, I was
right.
kind of surprised when I thought about it. You didn't have Willow in your top 10 for fantasy. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, because we had just talked about it with Ron Howard. It probably would have been
Sure.
in
Yeah.
there,
Yeah, I
but I
gotcha.
wanted to
Yeah.
change it up a little bit. But it's
And I'm
definitely in the top 20.
Yeah, and I meant to mention it because I went back and watched it and I'd never
Oh,
seen it before and
right.
I thought it was very good.
Oh, good.
And so I'm glad they're revisiting this. It looks really
Yeah.
good. And is Kevin Pollak in it again?
Yes, that was him. I
That
couldn't
was
believe
little
it. He's back
tiny
as the
Kevin Pollak.
brownie. Yeah,
Yeah, he's always so funny.
I know.
And
He's a
he's
funny
great
guy.
in the original. So
Yeah.
yeah, that'll
Yeah,
be
I'm
good.
excited about it. I'm glad they're,
Yeah.
again, like you said, revisiting this world. It's such a rich fantasy world that we've only gotten one movie
Mhm.
from, and I feel like there could have been so much more. And George Lucas always wanted to go back to it, but he got
Mhm.
preoccupied with the prequels and everything. And so I know he had a little bit of a hand in it. I don't think he actually like did any writing or producing on it, but I think he was on
Mhm.
set maybe or something, and they had
Gotcha.
conversations with him about it at least. So yeah, that one looks good.
I'm a little jealous. I kind of wish they would do a good Labyrinth series.
Yeah, they
And they actually
should.
they did do a TV series called Labyrinth. It was a few
Oh,
years ago, but I had never heard of it, and I'm pretty sure it was
okay.
kind of just sort of a low budget,
Really?
like not non-hyped series. So it kind of
Right.
came and went, and
Right.
it didn't really have any talent that was part of the original at all, from what I understand.
Oh,
So
yeah, that stinks. Yeah, they
sadly,
they
yeah,
did. I mentioned on our last podcast they did that with Dark Crystal, and unfortunately only got one
yeah,
season. But it is a really good season of
that
TV.
one's
It's
good
on
though,
it's
huh?
on
Yeah.
Netflix. Yeah, very well
Mhm.
made,
Right.
very well done. Last bit of news from Lucasfilm was Indiana Jones. So Harrison
Mm.
Ford came out on stage and introduced the first footage from the fifth Indiana Jones movie. This was unfortunately not released to the public, so only those in attendance got to see it. But I looked
Wow.
online, got a lot of descriptions of what they saw, and it sounds very interesting. A lot of people that were there got very excited. Harrison himself did confirm this is his last outing as the character. No
Uh,
surprise, he is
I mean,
over
he's like
80 years
80,
old.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he got a little emotional on stage, which
Yeah.
was expected, I guess.
Hmm.
Character that you've played for so long, so popular.
Yeah,
One of his favorite characters. He says this all the time. This is one of his favorite characters to play.
I bet.
The footage that they got to see there included Indiana Jones on horseback riding through New York City. And it
Hmm.
looked like 1960s New York City. So that
Okay.
tracks if you
Yeah,
follow,
time
the
wise.
last film was in the
Hmm.
50s. Now we're about 10 years after that. So it's going to be in the 1960s. Nazis. So I don't know if that's going to be a flashback or what that's going to be.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Some of the attendees did say they think they saw what looked like a de-aged Harrison Ford.
Oh, really?
So there
Okay.
probably will be a flashback if there's Nazis involved.
Nice.
Mads Mikkelsen's character, they said, did look like he was dressed in Nazi gear.
Uh,
So that probably will play into it. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is going to be in this movie, she's also, I think, credited as a writer. Her character gets caught up in this adventure with Indy. She was in Solo as well. She played L3, the droid. Curious to see what her character is going to be all about. But yeah, everyone was very excited. They said it looked very adventurous, mysterious, kind of last outing for the character. James Mangold's directing and writing it,
oh,
whom I'm
okay.
a huge fan of. He did Logan, which is a great send
Yeah,
off for the Wolverine. So I'm hoping this will be much of the
right.
same.
Any mention of aliens in their reaction?
No mention of aliens.
That's
No mention of
good. That's
aliens.
good.
So yes,
That's good.
right.
All
Yeah. So
right.
I'm very excited.
Is
My
that next summer?
That is next summer, June 30th. June
Okay,
30th.
good.
That one will be in
That's gonna be
theaters.
awesome.
Yeah,
Good.
it's been delayed several times because of the pandemic, and supposedly they had to rework the script before they started shooting because Spielberg was on board. They had a script that they kind of liked, and when Mangold came in, he kind of reworked it a little bit, and so
Okay.
yeah, very excited again with Mangold. If you can't have Spielberg, who's done all the other movies,
Yeah, but he's almost 82, isn't he?
he is still
Yeah. Or
directing though.
he's
He instead of
yeah.
this, he did the Fablemans, which we'll talk
Yeah,
about in a
which we'll
minute. They
talk about.
they
Yeah.
released a trailer for that.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, very excited about Indy. No title yet. I was hoping we would get a
Okay.
title.
Yeah.
All that they had on the screen was Indiana Jones, which I kind of wouldn't mind if it was just called Indiana Jones, if it's his last one.
Yeah.
It kind of
Yeah.
makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just have to again wait and see what they end up calling it.
And Shia LaBeouf is also not gonna be Indiana Jones.
No, he will not
Just
be returning.
clarifying.
Right.
Okay.
Last up was 20th Century Studios. They bought Fox. It's now called 20th Century Studios. And James
Okay.
Cameron came on screen to
Oh,
talk a little bit about his 6 Avatar films he's
he's still
making.
committing to December, is he?
Still committing to December 16th. The sequel, The Way of Water, will be released. They unveiled some new footage, underwater footage. They gave
Okay.
everyone in attendance 3D glasses so they could see it in 3D.
Oh, it will
So
be in 3D
it
then.
will all be in 3D,
Good, good,
4K,
good. That's
Ultra
got to be an
HD.
IMAX 3D for
Oh
sure.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, I brought the cast out. Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana,
Okay.
Sigourney Weaver was there. She's coming back as
Oh,
a totally
yeah,
new
she's great.
character
Oh,
because she died in the first one, so she can't come
hmm,
back as that character. So
yeah, yeah.
it's an interesting casting though because she's actually playing one of the young children of Jake and Natiri. So she's going to
Mm,
be playing like a 10 or 12-year old Navi character,
hmm.
which I'm really curious to see how she pulls that off. I mean, it's performance capture. You can do anything. That's what's cool about
True.
it.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
really interesting. So yeah,
Wow.
supposedly the footage was great. Again, it wasn't released, but
Okay.
the audience was in awe of the
Yeah,
underwater footage, 3D. Looks
yeah.
like a good story too. They said it's definitely focusing on this family that Jake and Natiri have now.
Mm,
This kind of
okay.
multi generational saga that I guess
Ah,
all 5 of these movies will end up kind of telling the story. He announced that he just finished shooting Avatar 3, and they're beginning
oh,
production on Avatar 4 next month.
okay.
So he's just gonna keep making these things, I guess, till the end of time.
Well, I hope the next trailer steps it up a little bit because it kind of just looked like, I mean, it looked good, but it looked sort of like the Avatar we got back in, what was it, 08, you know? So hopefully this
Right.
next trailer is really drops us what is going to blow us away, you know? I hope.
Exactly. And the first trailer, I didn't get to see it in 3D. I'm sure that makes all the difference. So
Could, yeah. Mhm.
very excited about the sequel. Never never count out Jim Cameron. He's
Oh yeah.
always delivered. All right, so a couple more trailers that dropped right around D23 this weekend. Two of them from Disney, one of them not. The first one I want to talk about is The Santa Clauses. So it's a sequel series to the Santa Claus trilogy, starring Tim Allen as Saint Nick himself. I grew up watching those movies. I mean, I watch them every year. First one's the best, easily.
Oh, it's one of the best Christmas movies ever. The
I
first one.
agree. I like the second one a lot too. I think the third one is where it started to fall apart a
They
little.
yeah, they got worse as they went.
They
Yeah.
did. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But this series, I mean, it's so many years later. It's going to be again, I think 8 episodes or something. It's about him finding his successor, and it's funny because my brother and I we like these movies a lot. We watch them again every year. We always talked about if they did another one, what would it be? And we always thought it should be about the next Santa. It should be like either he dies
Mhm.
or they
Which is
can't.
how he took over the role
Right.
because the Santa originally fell off the roof.
Exactly. This one, it looks like he's just retiring. He's just
He's being more
done.
proactive. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It looks good.
I don't know. I don't know. It does look interesting. It looks, it's Tim Allen back. And
Yeah, thank
so,
goodness.
yeah. So, yeah, I'm curious about it. It looks funny. It looks fun.
Hmm.
Releasing right around the holidays. I know Bernard is back from the
Yeah.
first movie. They brought him
Right,
back.
right.
I don't know if the young
Yeah.
actor who plays Charlie is coming back or not.
Oh.
I think I saw Elizabeth Mitchell in it, who plays Mrs. Claus
Mm.
in the second and third movies. So
I think
yeah,
Judge Reinhold was in the first one. I don't know if he was mentioned as coming back, but
yeah, I think he's
he's
pops
funny.
up in all of them. Yeah, he is
Oh,
funny.
does
I
he?
like him a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about him either. I didn't
Neil.
see him in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it was a brief teaser. Not a whole
Yeah.
lot to go on here, but I'll definitely be tuning in.
Hopefully they right the ship. Yeah.
The next one was National Treasure, Edge of History. So it's kind of continuing that story along. Sans Nicolas Cage, unfortunately, to me, the
Yeah.
only good thing about that franchise
I
they
think the only thing
don't have
returning is maybe the music.
the music
Like,
and Harvey Keitel, who played a brief role, I
oh,
think, in the first
yeah, that's
one.
right. He isn't. Yeah, you're right. He is in it. Yeah,
Right.
you're
Oh,
right.
and at the end, was it Riley who shows up?
Is that him?
I think that was him.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, he has a
Yeah.
quick
He's hilarious, I
one-liner.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he is one of my favorite parts of the movies. Like we've talked about, I'm not a huge fan of these films. They're just kind of uh,
I love him.
discount Indiana Jones for me, but you know, they have their moments, and like I said, Nick
Yeah.
Cage, he's always entertaining, but this new
Right.
cast, I don't know anything about them. They seem
Yeah.
like they're maybe going to be good in it. I don't know. It's an intriguing story, I guess, because you have
Hmm.
this character's father who was kind of on this treasure hunt and
Hmm.
what happened to him, and it's an interesting idea, I guess. I'll check it out. um
Yeah. I was,
I don't know.
I was getting kind of CW vibes from this one.
Yeah, it looks a little cheap, looks a little cheesy, a
Yeah,
little soap
yeah, like
opera-y.
yeah, it might be aimed more for the younger,
Yeah,
teens maybe,
right.
which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but unfortunately they don't always get like the better writers and
Right.
the budgets and that kind of thing.
Yeah, Jerry Bruckheimer is behind it again.
Yeah,
He's always a good
that's true.
producer,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we might be surprised,
Hmm.
so we'll just have to wait and see on
Have
that.
to try it at least. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, give it a shot. I think 2 episodes are premiering soon. I think in December is when it said.
Yeah.
Early December is when it drops 2 episodes. So the last trailer we wanted to look at, a movie I'm highly anticipating. My favorite director, basically directing his own biopic, like a fictionalized
Yeah,
version
it
of
seemed
his
like
own
that.
life.
Yeah, yeah.
Steven Spielberg's The Fablemans. And this trailer was just released yesterday, and it looks so good. I cannot wait to watch this movie. Looks like a great sort of grounded family drama. It's all about the love of cinema. It's all about, this young boy who wants to grow up and make movies. His dad's a scientist, doesn't really get it. His mother's kind of the more wild, kind of artsy one, and she's encouraging him, and
Mhm.
his relationship with both of his parents and his siblings. And I think Seth Rogen is playing his uncle. Paul Dano is the father. Michelle Williams is the mother. A-list cast, great looking movie. I'm sure Kaminsky was behind this one as well. And
Yeah.
the score I'm sure is probably another John Williams classic. So yeah, I'm ecstatic about it. I cannot wait to see this one as at the top of my most anticipated list of the year. What did
Well,
you think about it?
yeah, this channel is about the love of movies, and
Absolutely.
I a little part of me when I was watching just this trailer and seeing this boy in the theater and he watches a movie for the first, I mean, that's like me, like in the
Right.
first time I was like 12, I think,
Right.
but you first see it and then you're like, wow, this is terrific,
Yeah.
and then well, I didn't take it as far as Spielberg, like I didn't go into movie making or anything like that, but
Sure.
then I mean, you and I both kind of went down that journey of, pretty much talking about film our whole lives,
Totally.
to various people that a lot of them don't want to listen or hear it,
Right.
They're like, yeah, whatever, it was a good movie.
Right.
Stop talking about it. So yeah, this definitely should be especially with the talent involved in it.
Yep.
It's a, it's a must watch for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, very, very excited about it. It's so interesting to see a director do that. I don't know of anyone who ever has kind of directed a movie about their life or
Hmm.
loosely based on his life. But, everything that I know
Yeah.
about Spielberg, it looks very much like what I've heard him talk about his life was growing up. So,
Hmm.
yeah,
Nice.
very, very interested, very excited about it.
Yeah, and it could, I don't know how many more films he's going to make, but it's a great one to for him to make sort of toward the end of his career.
I agree. I agree. It wouldn't be a
Makes
bad swan
sense.
song for him, really.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't see how. I mean, I'm sure he'll have other ideas he'll want to make movies about, but yeah, to kind of go out on that note would be really kind
Hmm.
of cool.
Yeah, be poetic. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Pinocchio.
Pinocchio!
Pinocchio.
Pinocchio!
All right, folks. Now we're going to jump into our review of the new Disney Plus original Pinocchio, a remake of the 1940 animated classic from Walt Disney himself. It's one of my favorite favorite movies, honestly.
Really?
Pinocchio, I think that movie is genius. It is groundbreaking. If you know anything about the history of animation, what he did there, coming off of Snow White, it's his second animated film,
Mm.
and what he did with the movements of the characters, the way they would move to music. There wasn't a lot of dancing in Snow White. It was pretty much just a pretty straightforward type of narrative. This was a full on musical where characters are singing and dancing. The natural movements of the human characters, of the anthropomorphic animal characters, the natural environments he created in that, the rain, the lightning, the waves and the water. I mean, there's just so much that went into making that movie that makes it groundbreaking in its day. No one had really seen anything like it. Coming off of Snow
Yeah.
White, it was even kind of a greater achievement. It won Best Original Score, Best Original Song. When You Wish Upon a Star is still the Disney theme song. Every Disney movie you go see, you hear that
Yeah.
played over the
Yeah.
castle logo. So this is a movie I've seen hundreds of times over my lifetime.
Wow.
The original,
Wow.
I've watched it so many times. It's to this day one of my favorite movies. The story is so good. The lessons Pinocchio learns, these life
Yeah.
lessons that anyone can glean from the voice acting, all of it. I think it's so clever, based of course on a book, Italian children's novel written in 1883 by Carlo Collodi. And so, yeah, this is one, again, I grew up on. So going into this new version, I'm kind of taking a lot of baggage with me. Expectations are a little high, similar to Lion King. I mean, I put this second to Lion King in my favorite Disney movies. This was just released on September 8th. It's got a runtime of an hour and 45 minutes. The original's 88 minutes. So they're
Oh,
adding on quite a bit of
okay.
new kind of characters and story here that we hadn't gotten before.
Uh,
Budget is estimated at 150 million.
wow.
Budget of the original was 2.4 million. So quite a difference there. And of course, the great Robert Zemeckis is behind this movie. We're going to talk about our favorite movies of his here in a moment, but this one for me, it fell short. I didn't get a lot out of it, unfortunately. Some positive things I will say about it. Don Burgess who I didn't realize works with Zemeckis on basically all of his movies. Great cinematographer. He really can shoot a movie very well. The visual style of this film is great. I didn't have a bad time watching it. I'll say that. Watching the
Mhm.
visuals, I got a lot out of that. I thought it was really well shot. I think the performances are very good, especially Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Jiminy Cricket. Unrecognizable. Well, of course,
Yeah,
he's playing
yeah,
a motion capture character, so you're not going to know who he is. But the voice, I mean, I could barely tell it was
yeah,
him.
yeah.
There were only a couple moments
Amazing.
where I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that is him." So he does a fantastic job, and I kind of like the way we go into the movie is through him. He's kind of the narrator
Hmm.
of the whole story, and so I think he did a very good job. Tom Hanks,
Yeah.
he's always good. You know, I think he was fine as Geppetto here. Keegan Michael Key plays Honest John. I think he was having a lot of fun playing that role. Lewin Lloyd played Lampwick. I thought he did a good job playing that character as well. Then you have a young actor named Benjamin Evan Ainsworth as Pinocchio. Very good performance, solid,
Hmm.
played the character very well.
Yeah.
I
Was
enjoyed
that
him
motion
as
capture?
I think it was. I didn't look too much into that because I saw in the cast list it did say voice cast. So I don't know if they did
Hmm.
just voice the character or not.
Okay.
New character Fabiana, played by Cayenne LeMaya, did a fine job as well. I thought her
Hmm.
character played into the movie in a pretty interesting way. She's not in the original film, but I thought she fit in fairly well in this new version. Where it fell apart for me was, a couple of new songs they try to put in just weren't memorable for me. The
Oh.
When they did the original songs, I didn't get as much emotion out of it. That ultimately was my problem with it too. And it's funny, it's similar to how it happened with The Lion King. I just couldn't connect for whatever reason with the characters and their journey. Even though I was familiar with it, I knew where we were going. I wasn't as emotionally attached or as involved and engaged as I wanted to be watching the movie. And again, I don't know why that is. If it was a direction thing, because again, the performances aren't bad. It's just there's some kind of disconnect for me with the movie. So it was just kind of less impactful. I find myself getting a little more bored with them kind of drawing out some of these sequences that I didn't think was necessary. I didn't find it as frightening either, which was surprising. I thought this would be a little more real and kind of visceral. And I found the animated version to be even scarier than this one. So
Mm.
I also thought the ending was very odd and abrupt. I don't know why they decided to end it where they did. Totally different ending from the original. So
Oh.
I've got a lot of issues with it. I didn't think it was bad necessarily. I guess again, visually very well made. Just didn't live up to the original for me. They didn't change enough. I want a movie to if you're going to remake something, come in with a new vision, come in with
Mm.
something different. I think they're too scared that they're going to offend fans like me who love the original. I just don't see the point in remaking it if you're not going to change something about it. Give me something new other than one new character, one new song is really all we got. And
Gotcha.
the changes they made just didn't make sense to me. So that's kind of where I am. What did you think?
I thought it was a very well done kids film.
Okay, cool.
And I have not seen the original, so I've seen
Okay,
it a few
gotcha.
hundred times less than you.
Right. Right.
I'm sitting here thinking, I'm coming into this having never seen the original, and I hear
Sure.
your reactions to Lion King and to this, and I'm
Mm,
thinking it probably doesn't matter what Disney does. There's going to be no film is going to be as accepted as the original of these
right.
classics
Sure.
because they're so embedded in our culture and
Right.
had decades of time to be accepted. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised they're making them now. I'm enjoying them because I really like
Sure.
Lion King, and I do
Right.
want to watch some of the other ones that are out. Dumbo, I've seen that, and that's pretty
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Not I
Yeah.
didn't like it as much as Lion King
Sure.
or this film, but
Yeah.
yeah, for me it was just it was a story that I'm familiar with, but I hadn't seen the original, so
Yeah.
it was kind of the first time that I sort of went on that journey with the character, but it sounds like it
Right.
was a little bit different direction than the original.
Yeah.
But these little I guess it's like early 19th century London villages are I guess are what it's supposed to be
Yeah,
kind of based in and
sure,
around. And I
sure.
just love the look of those.
Yeah,
And then yeah, Zemeckis, what he does as always, you know, he's got these just incredibly inventive scenes that he puts together that are just, you got to imagine that he just dreams this stuff up in his
right.
mind and then somehow makes it onto the screen and just
Yeah,
looks incredible. You
it
know,
does.
just really inventive, imaginative things
Right.
that I would never even know how to turn into something you could see on film, you know, and
Sure, right.
appreciate. But so I really liked it pretty much from
Hmm.
start to finish. I
Yeah,
didn't even know that When You Wish Upon a Star was from Pinocchio because I heard
yeah.
that song and I thought, is that from this movie then?
Right.
Because I just assumed it was something like, I don't know what movie I thought it was from, but
Right, right.
I wish this film was available in 3D because there were
Oh
so many
yeah.
times where things jumped out toward the screen,
Right.
and I thought, oh man, in 3D that I'd be hooting and hollering.
Right, right.
So I thought it was really good. I get what you're saying. But see, someone who loves those classics, I don't know if they can ever really make a film that's gonna touch it,
Right,
right?
right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, the only one that comes to mind is, like I mentioned before, Pete's Dragon, where that's a movie I grew up watching. You know, the original is this animated live action hybrid about this kid and this dragon. It's a
Yeah,
musical and
I've
it's
seen it. I
big and
think.
colorful.
Yeah.
The new one is totally different. It's a
Okay.
much more grounded, dramatic film. It's not a
Oh,
musical.
yeah.
It's about this kid whose, you know, parents die tragically, and he's lost in the woods, and this dragon and all these
Yeah.
townspeople get involved. Carl Urban's in it, Robert Redford,
Oh,
Bryce
oh,
Dallas Howard. It's an excellent movie.
oh.
It went way under the radar. No one talks about it.
Yeah, I need to find that.
Yeah, it is by far my favorite because it's just totally different. It's like they took certain elements from the original and they
Mhm.
kind of just put a whole new spin on it.
Yeah, I get
And
that. But
yeah, and I go
but
ahead.
if they do what they did with Lion King and they take Pinocchio and do it shot for shot, line for line,
Right,
I mean a few different actors.
right,
I mean, it's not gonna do it for you, I don't think. And then
right,
and then let's say they made Pinocchio and they just made it a horror movie and it's
right.
completely different. Uh,
Well, it's funny you mentioned
no
that.
no no singing.
It's funny you mentioned that because Guillermo
Yeah.
del Toro is right now working on his stop motion Pinocchio film, which is
Oh,
coming out,
really?
I think, in December to Netflix.
That will be interesting.
Yeah, I'm
This
very excited.
December?
This December.
Now wait a minute. It's called Pinocchio?
It's called Pinocchio. It's
Because
a public domain character.
oh, so Peter Pan and Pinocchio are public domain. I
That's
did not know
correct.
that.
So is
I'm
Snow White.
interested.
That's why we got, you know, a couple Snow White movies a
Oh,
couple years back,
oh,
you
right.
know,
Well,
and
the Huntsman. Wait, no, that's
Huntsman
not.
one. Yep.
Yeah, that
Yep. Snow
is.
White and the
Yeah,
Huntsman. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a few of these
Yeah,
characters that they've been around forever. So anyone can use them.
that's a good point. Yeah,
And
after a certain
they,
amount of time.
right, right. So
Okay. Yeah. So I thought it was very entertaining. I think it's a great movie for kids. A lot, like you said, a lot of life lessons. And
sure.
so for someone that's coming in without having that original,
Right.
it's a really so visually interesting. I mean,
It
amazing,
is. It
amazing.
is. It is. I really like the way it was shot. A couple times I thought they went a little too heavy on the CGI, especially this Pleasure Island sequence.
Oh,
I found
okay.
that was a little too much for me.
Gotcha. Uh-huh.
But I like the new design of Monstro. In the original, he's just a big whale, and this one he's this kind of creature, which
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
was an interesting design.
Yeah,
So
definitely was.
yeah, yeah. I mean, all in all, didn't hate it. You know, I
Yeah.
just I would never. If I was going to show someone Pinocchio, I would always turn on the original. I'm not going to show them this version. You know, I'm at about two stars on it. It's
Oh,
about all I
really?
can give it right now.
Wow. Okay.
You know, it
Okay.
still explored the themes that are important to Pinocchio. You know,
Mhm.
bravery, truthfulness, selflessness. You know, all of these things are still there. These
Yeah.
elements of the story. I just found it to be a little too long.
Yeah.
Again, found myself getting bored a little bit, almost falling asleep at some points. So,
Wow.
you know,
Okay.
just not as into it
Yeah.
as I was the original.
Well, and I'm at 3.5,
Okay.
possibly 4 stars on
Okay.
it. But keep in mind,
Great.
this is one that I would probably only watch with, like kids' movies. I don't
Sure.
tend to just watch them alone.
Right. Right.
So if I'm watching it with kids, I think it's a really terrific one because I actually enjoy
Sure.
it.
Right. Right.
But so keep that in mind. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's a 3.5 like that I enjoyed it as much as I do some other 3.5s. I guess I
Sure.
felt like I just needed to make that clarification.
Right.
But also I wanted to throw in one other thing on this. I don't know if these were purposeful callbacks to Zemeckis's other films, but all the clocks at the beginning reminded me of the beginning of Back to the Future.
Yes.
And then and
I'm
then
glad you mentioned that. Yeah. I
yeah,
was going to mention that. They referenced
yeah.
basically every Disney movie, every
Uh,
Zemeckis film.
yeah.
I mean, it was a bizarre choice. I found that
Yeah,
totally
that is
took me out
strange.
of the film in a way
Oh,
that didn't work. I didn't
mhm.
get why they decided. I mean, I guess he's just
Yeah,
having fun, but it just
yeah.
it was a very
Little
strange
Easter
choice for
eggs.
me.
Well, and then of course Tom Hanks on a small boat, and then there's a
Right.
whale, and
As
the
soon as
film
he was
ends with him
washed
on an
up on
island.
shore, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it did kind of take me out of it a little bit, but I
Yeah.
still I wasn't I didn't give it 5 star or anything, but
Sure.
very enjoyable, very surprisingly enjoyable, especially
Good.
this film is getting just panned. It's just getting
Yeah.
uh backhanded
Right.
and pistol whipped all
It
throughout the
is.
media. I don't understand why. Probably because of the reasons you gave, which is that
Sure.
if you're too heavily invested in the original,
Right.
it's never going to be a good film
Right.
to try to
Sure.
redo it in some fashion, even if it's
Yeah.
not a shot for shot remake and you try to go in a little bit different direction.
Right. I agree. Yeah. So that's where I'm at on it. I'll mention again my favorite Disney remakes. They've done several of these so far. Number one is Pete's Dragon, just because it felt totally new and different. Alice
Mhm.
in Wonderland, Tim Burton, his style just fits that story so well that I thought it worked. And it's also not technically a remake; it's a sequel. About halfway through the movie, you realize she's
Mm,
been here before, and it's
right.
actually a sequel to the original. So
That
I
one's
thought,
really, really good in 3D, by the way.
oh, I bet, yeah, I would like to see that in 3D.
Yeah.
I like the Cinderella remake well enough. I thought Kenneth Branagh was a good choice for that. Very visually interesting.
I didn't see
Good
that one.
cast on that one. I think Kate Blanchett is the evil stepmother.
Oh,
Lily James is Cinderella. Richard Madden is the prince. So that one was, I thought, well done. Jungle Book was
oh,
fun.
that was good. I saw that.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought Favreau did a pretty good job with that. The voice cast was good.
Mhm.
Overall, it was basically the same, but a little bit different. Dumbo, you mentioned, I thought was very good. That one was very unique in
Mhm.
that it explored these human characters alongside Dumbo. Colin Farrell, one of my favorite actors, is great in it. Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito. That one I had a
Yeah.
lot of fun with.
Yeah.
So those are probably my top five
Gotcha.
of these remakes that they've done so far. Now our review of Pinocchio is over, so we're going to jump into our top five favorite Robert Zemeckis films of all time. This is a director who's been around for many years now in the business, and he's made some really good movies. So we're going to kick it off here with our top five. So before we jump into our top five favorite Robert Zemeckis films, we're going to mention some honorable mentions here, some that almost made the list but didn't quite. The first one I have is Death Becomes Her. This is a movie made in 1992, stars Meryl Streep, Goldie Hawn, Bruce Willis in a very unique role for him. It's kind of a funny, zany horror movie, I guess. It's kind of a horror comedy. It's lots of fun special effects that they do in that movie, and just a fun, enjoyable story. I've only seen it once, but really, really liked it when I watched it, and I can't wait to watch it again. So that's my first honorable mention. Did you have one?
Yeah, I've got one. And it's kind of a weird one. It's a weird movie, actually. Polar Express.
Oh yeah, Polar Express. I
Yes.
This is a
I
movie.
saw
A lot of
this.
people say it's
Yeah.
weird. I like it a lot.
Well, it's just it was early on in CGI still,
Right.
relatively,
Sure.
and some of the worlds that Zemeckis created feel like they're just strangely absent of ambience for some
Right.
reason. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And but I will say I did see it 2 or 3 times in the theater
Oh,
because it was released in 3D. It was at the time. I mean, this 2000 was it something like that?
it was
It
2006, I want to say.
yeah. There wasn't a lot of 3D films that
Right.
were any good, and
Yeah.
this one was a kids film, and so
Sure.
you know kids could go to it. And
Right.
so I think 2 or 3 Christmases in a row it was released, and I went two or
Yeah.
three years in a row to see it. Yeah, in
Right.
3D.
Yeah. We watch it every year. It's one
Oh,
we
okay.
really like it. We like the
Yeah.
music. I think the songs are really fun. You know, toe tapping songs. Tom Hanks playing, I think 7 roles or something. He's like
Yeah. Yeah.
at least 6 or 7 different characters in the movie, and it's always fun to see that. So yeah, I really like this movie. My family, we've watched it for years. Yeah.
It's a pretty good film. It's a bit weird though, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
Next one I had for honorable mentions is Beowulf.
Oh
This is
yeah,
another one of these
that was a good one.
performance capture films he did
Yeah.
early days. I think this was 2007, 2008, right after Polar Express. Very different in
Hmm.
tone and vibe. It's an R-rated,
Yeah.
heavy, violent fantasy film, and
Hmm.
it's just really well done. Great performances. Robin Wright, Ray Winstone, Angelina Jolie. Very well done. I really like this movie. I think it's a fun watch. Never got to see it in 3D. I'm sure it would look great, but yeah, that's a fun one that I considered for the list.
Yeah, that's a good one. I had one. It's called The Walk. You ever see The Walk?
I have not seen that. I tried to watch
Okay.
it this week. I didn't get the chance to, but
Yeah.
you like that one?
Yeah, it is good.
Okay.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt again.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
He plays this Frenchman that dared to, walk the tightrope between the Twin Towers, and he really
Right.
did it. But and while it is a good film, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt does a pretty good job. He has a French accent and that kind of thing,
Right.
and it's pretty believable. He really throws himself into it.
Yeah.
I would actually recommend the documentary over it, though.
Oh,
There's a
right.
documentary that came out a few years before, and it has actual footage
Oh,
of him doing the walk
wow.
between the Twin Towers. So
Wow.
if you can find that, I'd recommend that over it. But
Okay.
they're both very entertaining.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Great. Yeah, I'll have to
Yeah.
check that one out. All right. So we're kicking off our top five now. My number five favorite Robert Zemeckis film is Flight. This movie was released in 2015. Stars Denzel Washington in what I think might be his best performance. It's definitely up there with probably his top
Wow.
three. He is phenomenal in this movie. Throws himself into this character. He's an airline pilot
Mhm.
who crashes his plane, and it's about everything that happens after this plane crash. Basically, how his life kind of unravels. The themes they're dealing with here are, how lies will destroy you and how the truth sets you free. This movie is so well done. It's so well paced. It's fairly long, but it's really well paced. It's extremely engaging. I've only seen the film one time. It's not one that you watch on repeat. It's very emotional and very heavy. What they're dealing with here, but Zemeckis just does a superb job directing. He works again here with Don Burgess, who I mentioned earlier. It's very well shot, beautiful looking movie. The plane crash sequence itself is amazing. What they were able to do there, the special effects are top notch. The rest of the movie, really no special effects. I mean, it's just actors acting,
Yeah.
which is kind of not typical for Zemeckis. He typically
Yeah.
has a lot of
Yeah.
effects in his films.
Right.
He's kind of known for progressing these kind of groundbreaking effects in his movies,
Hmm.
and so this was a little bit different for him. And he just does an excellent job. He just proves himself as a storyteller, as a director of actors, because all the performances across the board are excellent, and it's just really really well done. I want to watch it again because again I've only seen it one time. I think for the first time I watched it maybe last year or the year before, so fairly recently. But yeah, all in all, superb filmmaking all around here. It's right now on Netflix, so you can watch it if you haven't seen it. Have you seen this one?
I did see Flight.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that it was a decent drama, but
Mm,
I don't really remember loving it that much.
okay.
I mean, I think personally, I think Denzel's best film or best acting job that he's done is every film he's been in. So it's hard for me to put it,
He's so
on number one,
good.
two, three, four.
I
Yeah.
know.
I mean, he's like the best actor ever,
Yeah, definitely.
essentially.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm sure I know he was. I remember he was good in it, and it
Hmm.
was a decent drama. But for some reason, I didn't really gravitate toward it a whole lot.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I found it very impactful.
Hmm.
I don't know what it was specifically about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
if it was just the themes of the story or what. I think it was all of it. yeah, the ending is just kind of a gut punch that
Hmm.
really got me. So yeah, definitely check out Flight again. It's on Netflix if you haven't seen it. That's my number five. So what's yours?
My number five is Forrest Gump.
Oh, great pick.
Yeah,
Great
yeah, and
pick.
you've heard of that film.
I have.
And you said a lot about it, and I said some about it too last time we talked about it.
Yeah, in
So I'll
our
keep it.
patriotic film
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
Yep.
So I'll keep it brief, but I will share that in the theater I can remember just being amazed at the special effects. This was
Mm,
early '90s,
yeah.
and what really sells some of the magic of Forrest Gump is when you see him shaking the hand of the president
Yes.
and going to these places and it was a little confusing for the viewer at the time. I mean,
Right.
nowadays you can see anything, anywhere, any
Sure.
person becoming whatever,
Right.
but at the time it just made it really magical, and that's
Yeah.
that's Zemeckis,
Yep. Definitely.
yeah. So and I can't say enough about the acting in it,
Mm,
and what Hanks did with it. And
mhm.
Sinise too, terrific.
Right.
That's kind of when he first came on the scene, I think, in Hollywood.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, great film.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent pick. All right. Good pick for your number five. My number four is Who Framed Roger Rabbit? This is a 1988 live action animation hybrid film. I think one of the first of its kind. I mean, I know Mary Poppins had some of that stuff in it, but this is
This
like
stepped it up
the
though.
entire
Yeah,
movie. Yeah.
yeah.
And they're interacting so much and
Hmm.
groundbreaking movie in every way. The technology, what they had to do for this movie. If you've seen any behind the scenes, it's painstaking what
Oh,
they went through.
hmm.
The animators just had the most difficult time because they shot it all obviously in live action first, and then
Yeah.
had the animators go over and make sure everything fit. Just
Hmm.
incredible work. It took such a long time. So many artists worked on this movie. The reason I think this movie works is Bob Hoskins. His performance totally grounds this otherworldly. It's anyone who doesn't know about it, it's basically our world exists with Toon World. So Toontown is this
Hmm.
place where all these animated characters live: Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse. I think it's the first and only time they've ever shared the screen before. You had Warner Brothers and Disney coming together to make that happen. And so you have all these animated characters existing in our world, basically. And so Bob Hoskins plays this private detective, used to work with his brother. His brother was killed by a Toon who dropped a piano on him,
Right.
which is sort of a funny line, but it's taken very seriously throughout the film. That's the thing about it is, death is treated seriously.
Yeah, yeah.
It's there's this murder that occurs that he has to kind of figure out who framed, as the title suggested, this character called Roger
Hmm.
Rabbit, and it's really just engaging on every level. I find this mystery very exciting, and I get
Hmm.
into it every time I watch it. And so that whole kind of noir detective
Yeah.
story works really well alongside all of this zany, silly cartoon stuff that's going on. It's just an incredible blend. Finding that balance of that tone is just really difficult, and Zemeckis totally pulls it off. Again, Bob Hoskins, I think, is the MVP here. You have Joanna Cassidy in a great role as well. You also have Christopher Lloyd playing Judge Doom, who's this excellent villain, very menacing. And so this movie is just tons of fun. I got to rewatch it again this week. It's not one I grew up on, though. I hadn't seen this one until, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago for the first time. So, not one that I've seen a ton, but I really enjoy it. It's so much fun every time I watch. It also has a great score by Sylvester. He's kind of doing that kind of
Mm.
mysterious noirish kind of 1940s gangster
Yeah,
film vibe
yeah.
here, which is really well done. So yeah, I had to make the list because it's one I've seen a number of times and always get a kick out of it.
This is one of his that I actually didn't like.
Oh, okay.
I Yeah, I saw it in the theater when it
Oh,
came out, and
uh-huh.
I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Uh, to me, it just seemed like he was trying to do too much with it. It seemed
Yeah.
really messy. It just felt
Mm,
like the movie needed to have it needed to be tightened up a little bit.
okay.
This It seemed like there was just too much all over the place,
Right.
and I just didn't really get what they were trying to go for in the film.
Sure.
So I didn't hate it, but
Yeah.
it's probably one I'd probably give 2 stars to or something like that. Maybe
Okay.
even a little bit less.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. It's very much it's a very specific thing, a very specific tone.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
The
like I said,
visuals are great. I mean, that's the part I enjoyed, but
right.
I just wasn't getting into it for some reason.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Been a long time since I've seen it.
Right, right.
Since it came out is when I saw
Sure,
it.
sure. Yeah, you might want to revisit it.
Yeah.
It is very different. It is, like
Yeah.
I said, it's its own unique thing. There's no movie to really compare it to. It came
Right.
out of his love for Looney Tunes and his love for animation, and he likes old detective movies too.
Gotcha.
So he
Yeah.
kind of wanted to blend them together, and he did. And so, yeah, that's what we ended up with. All right, so that is my number four. What's yours, Bert?
I had to break with tradition a little bit because in the past I try not to include more than one from a series
Hmm.
um, in my top five.
Right.
But in this case, I did. I
Okay.
had to. So
Yeah.
what I've got here is Back to the Future 3 is
Back to the
my
Future 3. That
number
is
four.
great. That is my number
Yeah.
three.
Oh,
We can
okay.
both talk about
Okay.
it now if you want.
Great, great, great. Well, you'll probably have a lot more detail on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one I've watched. I haven't watched it recently, and I wanted to have the time to, but I didn't get a chance
Mm.
to. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a really great, fun Wild West tale, and this is one of those where the film was going in, or the series was going in a certain direction. Obviously, with one and then two, I felt two was not nearly as good, obviously, as the first one,
Right.
and I was, you know, I guess before I saw a preview or anything for the third one, I guess I feel like I wasn't necessarily looking forward to a third Back to the
Sure.
Future, and
Right.
instead they went this completely different direction and sort of
Yeah.
redeemed the entire series.
Yes.
And it's yeah, there's so much fun to be had with this movie, and the effects obviously are Zemeckis effects, so they're good.
Right.
And you get to see these grandparents of characters that we've seen in other
Yes.
films and all the
Right.
different tie-ins from the
Yeah.
other movies. It's very rewarding in that sense,
Yes.
and just kind of a great story on its own.
I agree. Yeah, controversial opinion. This is my favorite Back to the Future movie.
Whoa,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
No
I mean,
way.
look, the first, it's a classic. I can't really deny that the first is maybe the best technically of them. I mean, the
It's
screenplay
very
is
polished.
perfect. It's so
Yeah.
yeah, it's so well done. But I just have so much fun with the third one. I'm such a
Sure.
fan of westerns in general,
True. Yeah,
and
I could see that.
combining the sci-fi and western genres in a cool way.
Right.
Like you said, wrapping up the series in a fun way. All
Mhm.
the callbacks, they're kind of like recreating scenes that we've seen before. Like,
Yeah.
when Doc and Clara are talking around the time machine's covered, they're in the barn. It's a
Uh-huh.
recreation of the scene where Marty's talking to his mom in the first one, and
Exactly.
Doc's
Yeah.
kind of in the background, and this one Marty's in the background. So it's all
That's
those
so
fun things.
rewarding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I enjoy every aspect of this. Doc and Clara, their romance to me totally works. I totally buy it. It totally
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense. I think it's some of Christopher Lloyd's best work in the entire
Yeah.
series. He's great here.
He gets to do
Mary,
more in this film.
he does, and he's kind of cool. Like when he shows up with that sniper rifle, you're like,
Yeah.
whoa, Doc
Yeah.
is like changed.
Right.
And Mary Steinbergen does great as Clara. She's an actress I really like and everything she does. So yeah, you have a different dynamic between Doc and Marty here. That's a little different. You have callbacks to the lone gunman from Back to the Future 2. This time he's using real guns, and so
Yeah.
all these little things that they're calling back to. Thomas Wilson as Mad Dog Tannen is excellent. I think
Yeah.
he's so good in that role.
He's a
He's
great
he's
actor,
got the
actually.
menace to him, but he's
Mhm.
also just hilarious. I mean,
Stupid.
everything that comes out of his mouth is hysterical. So
Yeah.
it's great. Exciting action sequences. I think the action
Hmm.
sequences in this maybe are the best. I
Yeah.
think
Maybe.
the whole
Maybe.
train sequence is really, really, really well shot.
Yeah.
Great,
Yeah.
great editing. Another great Silvestri score. Again, blending in that very
Mhm.
Western vibe, those different instruments
Sure.
he's using.
Right.
So much here to like.
Yeah.
That I really think is good. There's a shot. I was actually just watching it last night. A shot of Clara standing at the train station that is just really well framed
Hmm.
shot that I thought was stood
Beautiful
out.
shot. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, we have Marty and Doc, just one of the best duos in cinematic history. I think this is their best adventure. I just really enjoy them on this adventure because this is
The two
Doc
of
and
them. Yeah.
Marty that know each other. This
Yeah, yeah,
isn't Doc
yeah,
and Marty. Doc from 1955 doesn't know Marty.
yeah.
He's kind of skeptical of him.
That's right. That's
And
right.
but we
Yeah.
still get a little bit of that in the beginning,
Hmm.
them kind of teaming up, him getting him back in the past. So,
Hmm.
just so many great relationship dynamics, dialogue, very quotable. Zemeckis is clearly a big Clint Eastwood fan. He references him
Right.
here again, the fistful of dollars scene with the bulletproof vest. So, all of that stuff
Yeah.
I just get a big kick out of. Again, as someone who likes Western movies a lot.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I just think this one has a great look to it. The town that they built, they actually built,
Hmm.
Hill Valley, 1885, which is really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, this just has so much that I remember so well, and sets, costumes, stunts are all really well done. I kind of grew up with all three, so it's kind of like Star Wars, the original trilogy. I kind of see them all as one long movie, but this
Sure.
one there's just has a special place in my heart. I think it's because again the Western stuff, and to get a great conclusion to a trilogy is difficult. It's difficult to pull off. And to
Especially
me,
when they're in all different directions,
yeah,
like
right.
these are. Yeah.
Exactly. And so to me, they totally pull it off here. Totally
Yeah.
satisfying conclusion to the whole thing. I don't want a Back to the Future 4. Don't remake it. Don't do anything with it. It's
Yeah.
perfect. Just leave it alone.
Yep.
So yeah. So that's my number three. What's your number three?
My number three is What Lies Beneath.
Oh yeah. Great pick.
Yeah. Yeah, we've mentioned on a prior podcast even, but this is the one that Zemeckis was in the middle weight making Castaway, and he needed Tom Hanks to lose a bunch of weight, so he had to take like 6 months off
Hey.
for that, and then so he
Yeah.
thought, well, let's just squeeze in an entire movie,
Right.
and what a great one it is.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty big fan of well-made horror movies,
Yeah.
um, and this I consider it a horror movie because I think it's pretty scary at times.
It is.
And I don't want to say too much because if anybody's watching this and hasn't seen this,
Right.
I really would like them to not know what happens, and
Definitely.
you know, no
Yes.
spoilers, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Right.
um but I love how this film is just a really beautiful to look at horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
The scenes at the house and the lake, and even like in the little town they go visit. I mean, they're just all
Right.
so quaint and sort of like I think it may be Northeast America is
Yeah. That's what
the
it looks
vibe I
like.
get.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I anyway, there's, I guess, the scariest parts of the film for me are there's a particular lake sequence, which is,
Yes.
it's so
Oh
I
man.
just to think about it is so
Yeah.
creepy,
It
like
is.
and then the very end of the film, without giving anything away, one of the creepiest things I've seen in film,
Yeah.
with the way that happens. So
Right.
again, without giving anything away,
Yeah.
it's in my top 10 horror movies I put it in
Sure.
horror. And it's just a very well made horror movie because there's so many that are just like a little bit scary, but it was a terrible movie, this and
Right.
that. We can get into more of that in a horror podcast, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that's my number three. Great performances from Harrison Ford. I mean, when does he have a bad performance? And
Exactly.
Michelle Pfeiffer, this she shows a lot of range in this movie as
She
well.
does. She does.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of her best for sure. Yeah. Very close to making it on my list.
Mm,
Zemeckis
yeah.
just knocks it out of the park. Does something a little different. I don't think he's ever done anything in this genre before or since. And
Right. Not to
yeah,
that
it's
extent. Yeah.
right, right. It's sort of his homage to Alfred Hitchcock. There's a lot of kind of Hitchcockian elements in there.
Mm,
It's mostly a
yeah.
single location.
Right.
So it kind of reminds me of Rear Window in that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but very well done. Another great score, creepy score there.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some
Uh,
really good music on this one. Yeah.
there is. Yeah, this is one of the first horror movies I think I ever watched. I remember seeing it
Oh.
when I was maybe 10 or 12, somewhere around
Oh.
there. Yeah, I was freaked out. Yeah, it
Oh,
was
and the
scary.
bathtub scenes. I didn't even mention those.
Bathtub.
The hand on the bathtub. That was the poster, so I didn't give much away there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it kind of does for bathtubs what Psycho did for showers. Yeah,
Right. I didn't take a bath for a week after
right.
watching this.
Exactly. Yes. Very stinky household. Yeah, that's a great one. Good pick. Good pick. We'll go on to my number two now, which is one of his earliest films from 1984, Romancing the Stone.
Hmm.
This is a movie I just have so much fun with. It's one of the few films that can recapture that Raiders of the Lost Ark vibe
Oh,
that I'm always looking for. You know, a great kind of adventure movie. You know, with some comedy, some romance, some big stunts. You know, I'm kind of
mm,
always on the hunt for the next big movie like that. The Mummy did it. Pirates of the
yeah,
Caribbean does it. You know, so.
sure.
This one does that for me. This one leans a little bit more into the romantic side, you know, as the
Hmm.
title suggests. It's about a
Right.
novelist played by Kathleen Turner, who's kind of daydreaming about adventure all her days, and she kind of
Mm.
eventually goes on this actual adventure with
Oh,
Michael
okay.
Douglas, who is this kind of soldier for hire, you know, living down in South America, and they get kind of caught
Oh,
up in all these hijinks, looking for
okay.
this precious jewel.
Ah,
So tons of fun. It's written by a lady by the name of Diane Thomas. I think it's the only screenplay she ever wrote because she tragically passed away right as they began filming the sequel, which is called Jewel of the Nile.
oh,
She
okay.
passed away very young. I want to say she was in her 30s or 40s. Great,
Mm.
great writer, very clever screenplay, a lot of witty dialogue, really well executed by Zemeckis. He had made, like I mentioned, a couple of films before this, one called Used Cars, the other one called I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Mm.
Both were box office bombs, didn't really do
Oh,
any
really?
business, but Michael Douglas
Mm.
liked his work on them.
Oh,
And Douglas is one of the first movies he produced. And so he actually wasn't going to play the lead in the movie, but eventually they convinced him to play it. And, you know, they got Zemeckis on board. This is his first collaboration with Alan Silvestri. So we get another great Silvestri score here. It's just a great movie I can turn on anytime and watch. It's one of those movies. It's, you know, so well made, you know, again, action, comedy, romance, it's all there. My wife also enjoys this movie a lot, so we watched it together a couple of times. And it was a sleeper hit when it came out. It wasn't
mm.
expected to do big box office numbers, but it did. It actually was a pretty big hit with audiences. And so this kind of put Zemeckis on the map. This is what allowed him to get Back to the Future the very next year, which of course skyrocketed him to, you know, the
Yeah.
top of you know, most wanted directors in Hollywood. And so, you know, this kind of made his career in a way. Without
Okay.
this, we probably wouldn't have as prolific a filmography as we do with him. So you know, Douglas and Turner have great chemistry here. Dana DeVito is great as the comic relief character. He's hilarious throughout this movie. It's an earlier role for him as well. So yeah, just excellent. Tons of shootouts, chases through the jungle. You know, all these big stunts that they did. You know, so yeah, I like this one a lot. It's again one I've watched a number of times, and we'll continue to watch as the years go on. Have you seen this? Sounds like you haven't.
I've only seen bits and pieces.
Okay.
It came out when I was really young and I
Yeah.
never returned to watch it.
Okay.
Now, I did watch and really enjoy The War of the Roses. You ever see that one?
Oh, sure. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. That's
Oh,
a DeVito directed it, right?
I think he did direct it and
Yeah.
stars in it, and
Okay.
it's I believe it's the same two leads, except
Oh,
they're battling husband and wife,
okay.
and it's a dark
Interesting.
comedy, but it's really funny if you
I
get a
wonder
chance
if
to
it's
watch that
like
one.
maybe supposed to be a sequel.
Oh, I hope not, because that would mean things went really wrong. Because I don't know if it's an unofficial sequel or not. Now, is
Okay.
Jewel of the Nile the same leads?
It is. Yes.
Is
It's
it?
Douglas and
Okay.
Turner. It's not Zemeckis, though. They got a different
Okay.
director. This is, you know, he was doing Back to the
Yeah.
Future. So, all right. So that's my number two. What is your number two?
Castaway is my number two.
Excellent choice. Great
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. A very impactful film.
Yeah.
Deals with a
Yeah.
lot of complex themes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody knows about this film, I think.
Right.
I was just even thinking about it today. The film is called Cast Away. Cast, full stop away. And there
Right.
is a
Right.
word, castaway, and
Right.
there's a
One
difference
word.
between the words.
Right.
Yeah, and so I'm sure it was a conscious decision to choose one over the other, although they're
Yes.
both not great. You don't want to be either of them.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, the single word castaway means to be cast adrift or ashore or shipwrecked,
Right.
whereas if you're cast away, that means you're discarded.
Right.
And that's one of the themes, obviously, that you really feel for the character, and you do feel kind of like he's just been rejected, and he's how they portray loneliness.
Mm.
um, is so effective, right?
So effective. Yes.
And yeah. And then what he does when he's alone, it's never boring,
No.
and he's basically in survival mode the whole time, and
Right.
then he has to deal with, whether he wants to give up and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's no, I don't think there's any other movie that comes close to dealing with that kind of subject the way this one does, so
Right.
entertainingly and so
Yeah.
heavily.
Yeah.
There was a Robert Redford movie, about maybe I think 5-6 years ago, where he's stranded on a boat in the middle of the ocean.
All is lost. Yeah.
All is lost. That
Yeah.
was pretty good,
I like that one a
but
lot.
yeah,
Yeah. It's
but
not
this
as good as
this
Castaway
obviously
though.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
this is just, I mean, it's just a tremendous drama, and like I said,
Yeah.
just really impactful.
Right.
So and there's there's not a lot of special effects, but there's a
Right.
really great intense plane crash sequence,
Right.
exciting
He's got a thing
plane.
for that.
Yeah, exactly. At the beginning of the film,
Right.
and you don't, only for a minute do you even see the view of what it looks like when he's about to crash, but it's when it's happening, and the aftermath that's so intense. And
Yes.
Zemeckis does a great job of recreating that and making you feel like you're really going down with him.
Definitely.
Uh, then I just want to mention, after all this stuff he goes through, I don't really want to give it away, but I'm sure people have seen it.
Most
When
people
he
have seen this one. Yeah.
Most people have seen it. So he finally gets home,
Right.
and then what he has to deal with emotionally,
Yeah.
because all he was hanging on to
Right.
was that maybe someday he could be back with his girlfriend, played
Right.
wonderfully by Helen Hunt,
Yes.
and then she had moved on.
Yeah.
Because, and then I mean, I think anybody would think, well, I mean, would I move on? I mean, how long are
Right.
you gonna wait? Like,
Right.
oh, it's so heavy,
Yeah. It had been years.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
the scene near the end too, when there's like a press conference about to happen, and they're like, "Okay, we'll call you out in a minute." And he's in this room, and there's this huge spread of all this like food and seafood and
Oh, it's
stuff,
all
and it's all
seafood. Yeah.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And he just looks at it, and he's
Yeah.
just, I mean, he doesn't even say anything, and he
Yeah.
doesn't
You
need
can.
to, because
Right.
what's going through his mind is
Yes.
just, my mind's going all over the place.
Right.
Like, wow, what he's got to be thinking back when he was, compared to back when he was on that island, and then
Yes.
now look at all of this. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Yes. Hank's performance. It's all on his face. He, like you said, he doesn't need to say anything. Yeah, that's how good of an actor he is. You can just tell what's
Mhm.
going through his mind because you've been on this journey with him this whole time, and yeah, you
Yeah.
totally feel for this guy. I mean,
Hmm.
just yeah, it's really really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my number two.
Yeah, great pick. Very, very emotional movie,
Yeah.
intense, also funny. It's a great.
There are funny parts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's very funny and almost scoreless.
Right.
Uh,
We talked about that before. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. When he's on the
yeah,
island, I don't think there's
right.
any music. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible, but great sound design and
Yeah.
you're just again you're just on that island with him. You're right there.
Hmm.
Yeah, excellent choice. Great film. All right, we're on to our number one picks, and my number one is Forrest Gump. This is my favorite Robert Zemeckis movie. I've seen it many times over the years. It's an epic story of a very simple man going through an extraordinary life as he kind of lives life through the later part of the 20th century in America. So we get to see all kinds of historical events from his perspective. And that's what Zemeckis does so well. He puts us in the shoes of this character, of course, paired again with Tom Hanks. This actor director pairing, it's one of the greatest. It's like De Niro and Scorsese, and
Yeah.
it's one of these great pairings where they just at this point, have a shorthand, I'm sure, where they can just kind of probably give each other a look or maybe a hand
Right.
signal and know exactly what the other one's thinking. So yeah, here they do, I think, their best work. It's such a specific character, and it's such a specific story that they're telling. The characters around him, Lieutenant Dan, Jenny, Mama, Bubba, all these just iconic characters, iconic dialogue, soundtrack.
Yeah.
It just they take you on this journey. It's one that I just really enjoy revisiting. Has heavy moments, has lots of levity in it too, plenty of humor, all the entire emotional spectrum you go through on this journey. And So yeah, it's a very, very effective film, very well told story. Like you mentioned, groundbreaking effect, totally, totally different kind of thing that no one had seen before. And so, yeah, it had to be my number one because it's just, to me, the most impactful and enjoyable of all of his films. So, yeah, 1994, Forrest Gump. That's my number one. So, what is your number one Robert Zemeckis movie?
Okay. Number one is Back to the Future. And
Yes.
for people that follow the podcast, they won't be surprised because this is like my fifth favorite movie of all time.
Right.
And so I've covered it at length, but
Sure.
it's got everything: action, sci-fi, time travel, humor. It's very stylish too. It's got great music and a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's very well written, very tightly written. Just basically, to me, it's basically a flawless movie if one
Yeah.
exists. It's
Sure.
because the amount of complicated material they're dealing with
Right.
could easily get lost on an audience.
Sure.
And they do a terrific job of making sure it's not hard to tell where they're going and who's
Yeah.
where and all that kind of stuff.
Right. That's true. Yeah,
So
that's a major strength of the screenplay. It's just one of the best screenplays ever because not just because of the dialogue, which is iconic and memorable, but yeah, the way they tell that story would be very easy to get confused, but they tell it in
mhm,
such a way that is very easy to follow.
mhm.
And that's why it was, I think, such a big hit. Outside of everything else, is just that very concise screenplay that they have there. Bob Gale did a great job.
Yeah, and I mean I've said so much more about it in the past, but yeah, it's I think it's his best work. But part three is really good too. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, anyone who wants more on Back to the Future, check out, I guess it would have been a very early podcast, our top five favorite movies of all time. That was Bert's number five pick. So look out for that one. We talked at length about Back to the Future. But yeah, it's a movie that I've visited many, many times. As I said, I've watched the whole trilogy numerous times and really get a kick out of it. It's another one of those with, like we said, comedy, action, adventure. It's almost a musical too. I think there's a lot of music in it. He plays
yeah,
guitar, and
right,
so
right.
it's got something for everybody.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
All right. Well, that is our top five list, top five favorite Robert Zemeckis films on this episode 20 of the Real World Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We want you to leave a comment. Let us know your top five favorite Robert Zemeckis films in the comments below. Also, give us your review of Pinocchio if you got a chance to watch that. It's streaming right now on Disney Plus. And give us your thoughts on all the news out of D23, all the Marvel Star Wars news. We want to know your thoughts on all of that as well. Be sure to give us a like, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications on all our videos here at The Real World. Bert, thanks so much again for joining us.
As usual, it's been very fun.
Absolutely. It was a great time. So, hope you had as good a time as we had. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to get notifications of all our videos here at The Real World, and we will see you next time.